Coach Masterclass. And even for those who are joining us through live stream, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Sarah Lee Alcaraz. I am the Executive Director of ITDWORLD Philippines, and I'm actually joining all of you here from Manila after a face-to-face workshop as well today. And for everyone who is joining us, first things first, thank you. Thank you for being here today, and welcome to the Future Proof Leader Beyond Competencies to Capabilities. You know, identifying high potentials, or what we call hypos, sometimes haven't you noticed it's very often a hit or miss exercise. For good effect, we would rely on competencies, we would rely on dimensions, so we can predict somehow scalability of talents. Then there are competencies. There's also the special set of competencies, also called capabilities, that would provide the highest validity, the highest reliability to distinguish the rest of bests, or what we call ROBs, from the best of bests, or what we call the BOBs or Bobs. So in this particular session, my dearest leaders, we're going to uncover 10 critical future-centric capabilities that provide higher success rates when we are identifying high potentials for future growth. And for everyone, we are in for a treat. Our speaker, our resource person, is the Senior Principal Consultant at ITDWORLD. He was also the Senior Human Resource Director, Asia Pacific and Japan of Freescale Semiconductor and other organizations. In that capacity, he was responsible for business HR in 9 countries: Japan, Korea, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, India, and Australia. And when you take a closer look at competencies, it will be along the lines of talent management, okay? Talent management, as well as leadership excellence, coaching and mentoring, as well as succession planning. So I know you're excited to all hear. I often call him Master Sifu. Let's give a warm ITD welcome to Master Sifu, Casey Yan. Over to you, Casey.
Thank you, Sarah Lee, for your very enthusiastic hosting of today's 1.5 hours webinar on this, what I would call a very interesting subject. Just before I do that, I will need to share my screen. Right, can everybody see my screen? Excellent. Right, now, so a little bit of background. I was a rather senior leader in HR, human resources, for quite a number of years. And one of the things that I was held accountable for was that I get called to Austin, Texas, which was the headquarters of a company called Freescale Semiconductor. And I had to explain, I had to justify the talent management deliverables from Asia Pac, myself being the head of HR for Asia Pacific. And in my early years, I was really struggling a little bit standing in front of the CEO and the C-suite, and saying, that I did an effective job in early identification of high potentials, and not only early identification, but successful identification of high potentials. And so after a number of years, I think I managed to find that magic set of competencies. It is a set of competencies, but I call it a special set of competencies, and I like to call these as capabilities. So let me explain to you why I call these special set of competencies capabilities. Right. So for a quick start, a lot, okay, of the line managers and human capital, human resource practitioners would have some familiarity with this thing called a 9-box grid. And we use this as a format to help us to create our segments, identify, assess our 9 segments of talents that we have in the organization. So it's called the 9-box grid. On the vertical, you can see that we're trying to assess whether somebody is a high or low potential. And on the horizontal, we would then have to also try to identify whether the said person has high or low performance. And therefore, in the high potential, high performance side of the chart, we call it box 9. And so this would obviously be the high potentials that are going to be ready to help us grow the organization, grow the business, and be able to drive business success in the future. Right. Now, so the question that I get asked a lot by human capital practitioners, line managers, CEOs, C-suite is, hey, see, I think my organization has a reasonable set of tools, have a reasonable set of approach for assessing high and low performance. Okay, so that's usually not too bad a challenge for organizations. What stumps a lot of organization is to be able to identify this dimension called potential, because by definition, potential is potential. It is not quite proven yet, but it suggests that this person has something, qualities, attributes, competencies, behaviors that they are meant for bigger and better things into the future. Right. So we have got to figure out a better way of assessing, defining, testing, validating, okay, high potentials. So I would like to open up quickly for a discussion, knowing that I have a lot of very seasoned and experienced leaders and human capital practitioners here on the area of talent management and succession planning. So let's go ahead and use the chat room, and also preferably speak into the microphone on what are some of your ways that you and your organization identify high potentials. So let's have an open sharing. By no means do I suggest that I know all the answers. So let's see what we can learn from each other. How do you currently define high potentials? Okay. Giving it some serious thoughts in the audience, I see. No right or wrong answers. Give us the benefit of your experience. Okay, thank you for that. Competency tests, 360 assessment, absolutely. Okay, skills assessments, client feedback. I think the client feedback is absolutely important, and I will speak a little bit more about that. Annual appraisals. Okay, now the annual appraisals primarily are for performance management discussions and assessment. But yes, okay, there will be times we will use the appraisal to also define future-centric growth capabilities. Absolutely. KPI ratings is one. Would you like to say a little bit more about that, is one?
Hi, Casey. Is one here, everyone. So I guess for to identify high performers, one of the ways generally we are looking at the KPI, the metrics in terms of how one is performing in their quarterly basis, a yearly basis. How is that performance charted across? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that, is one. Any other great ideas? Right. Okay. Feel free to continue to put in your ideas as and when it comes to you. But in the interest of time, I will push on. So a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in the chat room is primarily helping us to have a more accurate view of performance. And we, as I said, need some other ways or additional ways in which we can identify potential. So let me unveil to you what are some of the learnings from my research where we can really see potential, okay, and it is absolutely an accurate way and a valid way to look at it. Okay, right. So first things first, ladies and gentlemen, I think you would agree with me that a high potential is about future leadership. Okay, and so we put the standard of potential against a future set of requirements, whether the job description requirements. Say, for example, if you're looking for a chief financial officer successor, a high potential who can lead into that role. Well, first things first, I ask you to ask everybody the question: are we going to use the job description, the behaviors, the KPIs, okay, the competencies of today's CFO position? And we use that as the basis by which we then assess, okay, well, is person A, person B able to do the current CFO's position, albeit it is a very senior role. And I would suggest to you that you need to do one more step. Of course, you got to take a look at the current job description, but because it's a future-centric role, I would challenge ourselves to say, okay, will the CFO's job requirements, the people that they work with, the businesses that they work with, the size of the business, the complexity, okay, of the relationships and so forth, change 3 years from now? And we got to put in that specification. We got to change and we got to apply that future requirement of the CFO's role, not only today's CFO's role, but tomorrow's CFO's role. So first thing is therefore to update your job description for all these senior positions. Okay, it's not to look at the talent quite yet, but first of all, to look at the requirements of the future position, the business, the complexity, the relationships, okay, the growth that we are looking for. Right, so it's about the future. And if we're going to talk about the future, then what we're going to have to do is to begin to figure out this word, this special set of capabilities. Now, to me, I break down the word capabilities into two parts. What I call capacity on the one hand and abilities on the other hand. And when you look at the combined capacity and ability, which constitutes capabilities, then you have the ingredient, you have a window, all right, into a better predictor of future potential. So let's explore capacity and abilities a little bit more. So when we talk about capacity, I always use this analogy when I was a young man, maybe 19, 20 years old, all right, going to work. And I was going to work, okay, in a motorcycle. And it is the lowest class of motorcycles, a 50cc motorcycle, far, far away from the Kawasaki's and the Harley Davidsons and the BMW, 500cc motorbike. So that gives you an idea of capacity. So when we talk about high capacity, what does that mean? That means when I am judging a talent's capacity, I am trying to ascertain his or her ability to do more, to do better, to do faster, to do the future things, to do things differently, and to do extraordinary things. Very, very definitely not ordinary things, unusual things, breakthrough things that we are looking for in the capacity of this up and coming talent. Okay, so that's the capacity we're looking for. When we're referring to abilities, okay, then this would go into more or less like what we have been talking about in the area of competencies, because we know that competencies are skills, knowledge, ability. So it's about our skill sets, it's about our experience sets, it's about our delivery, it's about our execution, it's about our knowledge, it's about our being able to, pure, plain, and simple, perform. Okay, so abilities helps us to deliver the necessary results. So now what you find is therefore this, a little bit breakdown, okay, of capabilities are a special set of competencies that provides better predictor of potential. Earlier, Sarah Lee has already given you a hint, is that we want to be able to differentiate between Rob's, ROBS's, and Bob's, BOBS's. Okay, I used to have a friend. His name is Robert, and we know that the short name that we gave for Robert is either a Robbie, a Rob, a Bob. Okay, so so I asked my friend, okay, if you are gonna meet and your future boss, and you want to use a short name for yourself, would you like to introduce yourself as Rob, rest of the best, or would you like to introduce yourself to the boss as Bob, best of the best? Well, okay, so the predictor of potential here is the ability to differentiate Robs from Bobs. Robs are good people. They're absolutely valuable, high contributor people to today's business. Okay, so, but we want to be able to then pass them through another filter, such as are they Bobs? And the Bobs are able to do future jobs. Now, and so competencies are, skills, knowledge that allows us to be able to successfully execute, deliver on our current requirements, on our business requirements, on our performance requirements. Right, so we haven't gone there yet. This is just a preamble. And so I have spent quite a bit of time as a very senior executive in human resources located in Hong Kong. And the advantage of me sitting in Hong Kong, and I had a very nice network of very, very senior HR people in Hong Kong. And in that network, we have about 30 people, and we have got HR leaders from Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, from Shangri-La Hotels, from Federal Express, amongst others. And so I talk to them a lot. So I learn a lot from them. Okay, how do you identify high potentials? And so obviously they have a lot of ideas. Not only that, but I have the luxury of spend. What does spend means? Means I got money to spend to hire senior executives, and I work a lot with the executive search firms, Korn Ferry, Spencer Stewart, Egon Zehnder. And these guys charge a mega buck for helping to place the successful candidates into your organization, my organization. So I talk to these people because obviously for them to recommend to you and me, hey, you need a chief strategy officer. All right, these are the 5 names amongst 20 others in their database. All right. And so they got to be able to screen off 5 best of the best from the other 15 rest of the best that is in their database. And so I learned from them. I say, how can you justify the amount of money I pay you unless you absolutely know what you are recommending? So I learned from the executive search firms. And then not only I learn, but then based on what they tell me from the senior HR leaders in the community and from the executive search firms who make money out of assessing correctly high potentials, we are going to talk about validity. So I take their criteria, I take their the competencies that they identify, and I subject it to all kinds of validity testing. And so as I was mentioning, all right, I work quite a bit with the big 5. So fortunately, my company had money to spend, and that is always good. And so I work with the big 5, and I learned a lot from the big 5. And the conclusion is, ladies and gentlemen, after benchmarking with my senior executive friends in the HR leadership network in Hong Kong and working with the executive search firms, all right, here, ladies and gentlemen, is the magic 10. All right. And I will go into details for each and every one of these 10 capabilities. But I'll quickly run it through for you so that you have a composite image of what all these 10 together looks like. So the first one is that talent, the high potential's ability to deal with global complexity. I will explain a little bit more. The next capability is what I would call an outside in, as opposed to an inside out approach of running the business. Simplicity, very important for clarity, for focus, for guiding the organizations going forward. And again, I'll explain a little bit more around that. Dealing with diversity and inclusion. The world is becoming an extremely complex place, and we have got to deal with a variety of stakeholders that we have never had to deal before in the past. Okay, and so the ability to get the inputs and then be able to synergize and catalyze those inputs are very important. Systems thinking. Very simple way to put system thinking is the ability to connect the dots in new ways, new dots in new ways, okay, that a lot of people may not be able to connect. Right, this big one. To me, this is a big piece among the 10. Agility. And to me, agility has 3 aspects to it. Learning agility. So you're a finance guy and you learn all you need to learn about finance, okay, very well. But can you learn engineering? Can you learn, okay, AI? Can you learn machine learning? Decision agility. You're not hung into a particular mode of decision making and planning. And of course, then agility, responsive action taking. Embracing uncertainty. How do you design your organization? How do you design your products? How do you design your people to a certain level of high quality, but then the ability to say, good enough. What I do not know about the future, I will learn and we will make it up as we go along. Okay, so dealing with uncertainty and therefore dealing with ambiguity and fuzziness. We all know VUCA, all right? And the middle piece. This is the gluing piece, ladies and gentlemen, where we call it managing paradox. Because when you deal with complexity, you got to deal with simplicity. When you're dealing with agility, all right, you got to deal, okay, with fuzziness. Okay, so in the four corners of this chart, the ability to manage the contradictions and the dilemmas that each one of them bring against each other. So your future high potential boss need to be measured against this set of potential criteria. And last but not least, we have number 10, which is on the right-hand corner. And I borrow this term, Griselians, from Miss Sarali Alcaraz. And she was the one who coined the term by combining grit with resilience. So maybe I like to ask, okay, Sarali, to maybe spend a minute or two, okay, explaining your concept of resilience.
Yes, Casey, thank you. Because somehow, well, we find that there's actually a bit of overlap, you might say, with no, with grit as well as resilience. The way that we would kind of differentiate, if you may, between the two. So grit, well, as mentioned by Angela Duckworth, it's passion, it's perseverance, it's staying the course, right? You have the grit. Whatever happens, I will stay determined. I will finish the race. Well, it's always a marathon. It's not a sprint. Resilience is the ability to bounce back. So there was a challenge, an issue or concern, and resilience is bouncing back in the face of this challenge or failure. So that's why we thought of combining both grit and resilience. Over to you, Casey.
Thank you, Sarah Lee. Yes, okay, and Sarah Lee talked about this lady, Angela Duckworth, and she described a lot of very talented people, but who unfortunately give up learning, give up taking, challenges and difficulties too early. And you think along about that. I know I'm stereotyping, so please bear with me. In particular, our Gen Z, quick gratification, quick wins, rapid, fire actions, and all that, are looking for extremely, extremely quick results. And when they don't get the results, they may give up too early, what we call an early plateau in their career path. Okay. I was working with a design organization in Hangzhou in China. And okay, the Chinese engineers back then walked up to me and said, Casey, I want to be promoted every 18 months. I want to be, a director of the engineering organization in 6 years. And so while on the one hand, we applaud their ambition and their passion, right, Sarah? But we have got to say, what happens if circumstances do not allow you to accelerate in the manner you want? Well, they're very open. They say, well, I'm going to leave this organization and I will pursue it within another organization that will allow me to grow to become a director in 6 to 8 years. And I said, okay, best of luck. So this impatience, not getting enough evidence of performance, execution, reliability, okay, is a very important part to test a Bob versus the rocks. Right, so as I promised, oops. Right, so let's deep dive a little bit. Dealing with global complexity. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right, help me. When you hear the word global, what comes to your mind? Is it only about cross-cultural Filipinos able to work with Thai people ability to work with New Zealanders, what have you? So what else comes to your mind when you hear the word global?
So Casey, Christopher says the entire world.
Yes.
Elaine says all inclusive.
Okay. Good start. Let me give you the antonym for global. Okay, and the antonym for global is local. All right. And so now if you can see the contrast, let's hear from you. What does a local leader look like, feel like, versus a global leader look like? Give it a shot. Everywhere, all at once. Yes, things becoming similar all around the world. Yes. All inclusive. Right. So as I said, okay, the antonym for global is local. So if you are a person who grew up in a certain point of origin, a local leader may have narrow perspectives if you compare to a global leader. Absolutely, Chris. Okay, you are right on, bang on target. So a lot of us, we grew up from our base point. We joined engineering, we joined finance, we joined marketing, we joined learning and development, okay? And then we grew up through that particular base point, specialization, if you will. So a global person is able to be very comfortable with his or her original skin, for want of a better word, but at the same time be able to appreciate what the rest of the world has got to offer. So, high level overview. Okay, the ability to look at the dynamics, the overlaps, okay, of one area of specialization and how it connects with another area of specialization. Able to deal with sometimes what I call preferred positions of people from various parts of the organization, and therefore be able to do a more inclusive, all right, point of view when moving strategies, when choosing, actions and investments. Okay, so got to be able to look at beyond your area of comfort, beyond your area of origin. Don't know why my computer is slow to respond. Okay, all right. So, and as a result of which, we're talking about having an easier way to look at it is a generalist mentality. If I'm an engineer, I gotta learn finance. If I'm finance, I gotta learn, okay, engineering. If I'm engineering, I gotta learn sales and marketing. If I am Filipino, I gotta learn, okay, Singaporean. If I'm Singaporean, I gotta learn Indian. If I'm Indian, I gotta learn Norwegian. Okay, so whatever is your baseline, whether it is your professional baseline, whether it is your ethnic baseline, whether it is your industry baseline. So one of the things that I was lucky enough from a global complexity point of view, I shifted from a technology company to a financial services company. As an example of dealing with global complexity, I was no longer operating in technology, which I was there for nearly 20 years, and learned very quickly to deal with the global complexity of financial services. Right, outside-in orientation. So as opposed to inside-out orientation. Organizations, okay, are full of processes, sometimes full of itself. And sometimes we are good. Okay, but what is a problem is that we become too much self-serving. The process serves itself. We forget that it serves the customer. And we forget that it serves the people who are supposed to give us growth and give us ability to develop. Right. So you got to be able to locate it from an outside in as opposed to having an inside out perspective. And so basically empathizing with people that is outside of your organization, outside, okay, of your business, in the shoes of the customers, in the shoes of your business partners. And then make those decisions from that perspective. And not because, oh, I have excellent, quality processes, I have excellent product design processes, but all these design processes are supposed to come up with products that please, that satisfy, that add value to outside. And the outside also means more competitive. Right. Okay. So you are constantly monitoring what's happening in the environment. Okay. See simplicity and complexity. Right. This everybody I think knows this man. Okay, that is appearing on the screen. Okay, Professor Einstein, and he has this very famous saying: "Let's make things as simple as possible, but no simpler. Let's make things as simple as possible, but no simpler." Now, in order for us to be able to manage simplicity, we got to start, ladies and gentlemen, with complexity. If you do not know the multivariables at play, the interconnectedness and the interdependencies, okay, within the complexity, you can't simplify. Because if you simplify something that is already simple, then you are being simplistic. And you know what I mean, right? Being simplistic. You are being a simpleton, all right? You are therefore not going to get to anything powerful. So remove the irrelevant, reduce the noise, able, okay, to get very clear priorities, be able to see what are the few, focus things that you want you and your team to work on. Okay, so that's what we mean. All right, you have heard of Eisenhower principle, 80-20 rule, focus rule, whatever. And leverage diversity and inclusion. It's kind of interesting that I have on today's call, Dr. Kathleen Ong, and Kathleen has a passion in the area of women's leadership. And so, Kat, are you still with us? Hello, Kat.
Yep, I'm here.
Right. Okay. Would you like to give us a few words of your wisdom on how leveraging diversity and inclusion, for example, from a female gender perspective?
Well, I guess we need to support each other in this time. Men support women, women support men, and support others as well. All people. We got to not discriminate, but we got to embrace people of all kinds, because today diversity brings about more creativity and innovation. So we must not look of people of the same kind to be in our team. We have to look people of different kinds so that we can leverage, we can think innovatively, and we can quantum lead our success. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat, for that valuable input. So first things first, we gotta bring in the diversity. All right, we gotta bring in a good mix of male, female, young people, old people, people from different professional backgrounds. Okay, bring in the diversity. First things first. But that by itself is insufficient. In fact, if you bring in too much diversity, you're gonna get a lot of problems. You're gonna get conflicts. You're gonna get differences of opinions. Right. Now, the trick of a leader is to be able to recognize the need to fill in the gaps, knowledge gaps, experience gaps, perspective gaps, personality gaps, and then glue it all together by making them work in an inclusive manner. I've seen many organizations chasing numbers. Oh, we're going to have more women engineers. Oh, we're going to have more women in leadership positions. Oh, we're going to have more women in the C-suite, and so on and so forth, which I think is a good place to start. But then they are not very inclusive in the way they leverage, their female executives and their points of view, and their personalities and what have you. So diversity, but very important, is the ability to include them And a lot of challenges that we have in organization is no longer about giving opportunities to the females into senior positions, but do they feel safe? Do they feel that they are able to contribute? All right. So must be able to provide what I call the psychological safety and psychological trust that comes with their diversity. Right. Next, manage paradoxes. I've explained managing paradoxes. Okay. And that is the ability to deal with polarities. Some examples of polarities that we deal. I get young engineers walk up to me and say, Casey, what do you want? You want speed or you want quality? And I tell this engineer, why are you asking me this question? The answer is logical. I want both. Okay, then a director level person walks up to me, very senior director person. Okay, walk up to me and my CEO. Casey, what do you want? You want to do cost cutting or you want to do investment? I say, excuse me, I think I paid for the wrong director. And I want cost cutting and I want to go to do investments. Okay, so these are the day-to-day paradoxes that we face, and we got to be able to navigate those paradoxes. That is not about the culture of this or that, but the culture of this and that. Right, systems thinking. I already talked to you just now. Okay, it's about connecting the dots. It's about the ability to see new ways, new perspectives. Okay, by looking at new dots or looking at existing dots, but connecting them in new ways. So we got to be able to look at coaching model. All right, this is what we are all passionate. The people who are on this call are passionate about coaching, and coaching is a powerful tool that triggers systems thinking so that people can explore new perspectives, new angles, new connections, new dots. Right, agility in learning and decisions and actions. Okay, so this one is so important. I don't think I have to explain too much because it's pretty much self-explanatory, especially on the part of actions. Because sometimes we are stuck with a preferred way of doing things and we are not willing to go experiment with actions. Okay. So new, taking chances, taking risks, all goes into this territory called agility. And embracing uncertainty. We have heard of VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and good enough. Let's go. All right. Back in the day when I was working with engineers, one engineering manager worked with Casey. We got to learn how to design the plane. Sorry, we got to learn how to build the plane and fly it at the same time. And I had the oh my God moment. What do you mean? All right. So he's saying we got to build it enough, but we doesn't have to be totally perfect. Okay, so embracing uncertainty. Do not be analyzed until paralyzed. Okay, know that you have sufficient, because time to market is absolutely critical. Right, ambiguity and fuzziness. I don't have to know everything, but I have to know what I need to know to make decisions. Okay, I don't have to be perfect. Right, and Ms. Sarah Lee Alcaraz has already explained to you a lot on what is grit and resilience. So, so I will move forward on this. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. All right, these are the 10 capabilities that you're looking for in your talent. Be it a very young engineer, be it a very middle manager, be it a director that you are looking for to place into the CEO's position. Right. But it is still at the end of the day an assessment. Albeit now you have a good criteria, a more valid, a more reliable way of identifying high potential. But you got to prove, you got to test, you got to validate. And the way which you do that is to provide your initial assessed high potentials through this, what I call SMART development. And SMART stands for strategic, mobile, agile, relevant, and talent branding. So what does that mean? Okay, first things first, strategically anchored. As I already said, future potential is about future job, future business, future technology, future. And so we got to be able to give your assessed high potential now, okay, assignments, tasks, projects to work on that is future centric, that looks okay at future scenarios, has got to test their future capacity and their future ability, and be able to align their strategy with the vision of the business. Okay, and so strategically anchored. Right. Okay. Mobility expected. Let me give you an example of this. I had a very, very talented engineering manager working in our factory in Sungai Way in Kuala Lumpur. Everybody thinks that he's good. I also think he's very good. All right. And so one day, I was based in Hong Kong, and so I came in all the way to Hong Kong. I visited him in KL and said, his name was Aziz, and I said, Aziz, pack your bags. I got a promotion, a double promotion for you in Chengdu in China. And Aziz turned me down. I said, what? Aziz, double promotion opportunity. He turned me down. And he gave me a bunch of reasons. Okay. And part of it was my problem because I did not take time to learn about his expectation and his constraints and what have you. Okay. Sorry, Aziz, we're going to give it to somebody else. And then, 18 months later, I had another big opening in Singapore, and I thought it was nearer to home. And I said, Aziz, go. And Aziz still refused to go. So I talked to my CEO and I talked to his general manager, the managing director of the plant in KL, and said, I'm removing this guy from my high potential list because he's very talented, but he's not mobile. Okay, too Malaysia-centric, too engineering-centric, okay, not willing to take on new engineering challenges and what have you. And so he's not mobile. Very talented, not mobile, not my idea of a high potential. So I got to move people around. I got to move my high potentials around. Then I want to, when I move them around, I want to give them, to test them in different environments, different technology, different business people, different, cultures, different. So I am going to put them through what I call an agility test. It's just not a bigger job, but a different kind of a job. And then I want to put them through another test, okay, which is what I call relevance oriented. And that is, it must be relevant to them. It must, ikigai, okay, happy. It must be a happy job. It must be a happy assignment. It must be a happy career. All right. And they got to be able to be credible. Relevance means that the various stakeholders that are going to work with him in the higher position in future will see his credibility up front, up and early. Must be able to do great stakeholder influence. Right. And last but not least is talent branded. And what I mean by this is that we got to help this high potential be able to be appreciated like a good band, okay, of a car, a good brand of a handphone, a good brand, okay, of a corporation, and is recognized, is acknowledged, and no dispute. I'm willing to pay money for this talent. And so this guy has got to communicate his brand on his own behalf. And we in management, HR, got to be able to help to project this person's brand. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Here is the list of things that we are going to put this young man, this young lady, this high potential talent, okay, through the grinder. It's called the smart grinder. And every time he goes through one turn of the grinder, he's going to be validated on those 10 dimensions. So in the background of the SMART are the 10 competencies. Right. Now, I always get asked a lot of questions. So Casey, how do I develop people? And surprisingly, we are quite limited in terms of how we look at how, where, what we develop people on, so that we can confirm and we can disconfirm and then we can further confirm. And I am sharing with you, ladies and gentlemen, 26 techniques. The only constraint on these 26 techniques is, are you willing to offer it? Okay. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. This 26 is supposed to do this. It's supposed to prove that the criteria we use, that Aziz, that Joanne, all right, is measured in a reliable, but using the wrong measures, not reliable, not valid, low reliable, low valid. And of course, we're looking for further evidence of high reliability and high validity. There you go, ladies and gentlemen, 26 approaches where we can offer our high potentials. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of seconds, okay, maybe 10 seconds, okay, to digest these 26 items. And some of them are pretty much self-explanatory, but I am willing to take questions if some of them begs, from your perspective, further clarification and further explanation. So this is the grinding machine, folks. Anyone that you are particularly curious about? Thank you, Dr. Cat. So that people will no longer have an excuse that I'm running out of ideas on how to develop my people.
Easy. Me, I'm curious about number 25, analogous world studies.
Yes, I kind of expect that. Okay, so very quickly, analogous world studies. Give you an example of what is analogous world. Okay, we know same, similar, and analogous. Same, everything is the same. Okay, similar, same, but with differences in it. Analogous has some sameness, but with a lot more differences. So let me give you an example. And I was presenting a paper in Cairo, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, at an ADO conference, and the conference paper that I presented was on this line. If cars were people were cars, let me repeat, if cars were people and people were cars, would you develop your people like you develop cars? And so this is a strange one, isn't it? And so, well, people don't have 4 wheels. We got 2 legs. But, the development techniques in designing, branding, going into creating quality cars, there are ideas inside there that we can apply to people development. Another one, analogous world. Again, performance management. Continuous challenge. Of course, we have reached a certain level of maturity in terms of excellence in performance management. I still continue want to have breakthrough ideas. So rather than talk to my 30+ very senior HR friends, we were sharing ideas every 3 to 4 months, and nothing new was coming through anymore. Yeah, a little bit of interest here and there, but nothing breakthrough. So I decided that I was going to stop talking to my HR counterparts. And I was going to go to the Olympics, the Summer Olympics high board diving event, to see how judges evaluate, okay, this great looking girl and this great looking guy in their swimsuits jump off of the high platform, do that somersault, and go into the water, and then get judged whether it's a 10 or a 9.8 or a 9.9. Okay, and I learned a lot of breakthrough ideas from how they evaluate performance in a high bar diving swimming event. Okay, so analogous world. Give you another one again. Analogous world. You are when I was a young man, I started in the factory, and I got permission, okay, from my management to go out and teach. Okay, in a MITD at the time, MBA workshop. Okay, Herod Watt MBA program. Why did my management so nice to me? Because they say, Casey, go. As long as it doesn't disrupt your current work, go. Why? Because Casey, you're going to learn from your students about different businesses, financial services, transportation, logistics, consumer goods. Casey, don't be a frog in a well. Go learn how people run other businesses other than the factory. So analogous world, okay, is the ability to go into different areas, go into charity organizations, go into sports organizations, go to the church, go to the government bodies, and go learn what you need to learn about leadership and running business. Analogous world. Right,
Awesome.
number 23. Yes,
Thank
sorry,
you.
Sarah.
Yeah, no, thank you, Casey. Yes, number 23. What does the
Right.
think tank advisory body mean?
Right. Make this person show his or her strategic thinking, show his or her outside in thinking. So, for example, if you are the managing director or the general director or the general manager, okay, of your organization, and you're looking for some very creative, out-of-box thinking, all right? So what you want to do is you put together a small group of high potentials, and ask them to go out there and think about this dilemma, this challenge, this thing, and come back and advise me and the senior leadership team, okay, on how we're going to approach this problem. That's what we mean by a think tank. They will think on our behalf, all right, and then they will advise us on what is going forward. And obviously, the nice thing is that we, the senior staff, seem to have maybe our mindsets already, and we got a fresh pair of eyes. But more importantly, is we are testing their ability to think differently, higher up, and obviously outside in thinking capabilities. That's what we mean by a think tank. Thank you for that question. Right. Okay. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. All right. The only constraint here is your willingness to give the opportunity to your people. Okay, because these activities take time over and above their regular job. And if your high potential is not willing to step up to take on these learning interventions, then they are not high potential. They will lack resilience. Right. Okay. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I want to just summarize. You got to have a set of 10 capabilities. And in the background of that, you got to be able to ongoing develop, validate, confirm, all right? And then after a few years, they will become not only high potentials, they will become ready now. Okay, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me the privilege and the honor to be able to share with you my view of high potentials and how to develop them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Casey. Now let's open the floor for some of your questions. All right. Feel free to type on the chat box or unmute as well. Yeah, so that we could have also our Q&A discussion. So Dr. Kat says, wealth of knowledge, Casey and Chris, excellent sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? For some of your comments, reactions, or questions? Okay. Hmm.
Thank you, Anne.
Okay, thank you. Right, and Francis. Yeah.
Emily.
Can't believe how much we've discussed, right? In just about an hour. Um, may I, Master Sifu, every time I want to take an opportunity also to learn as well. Maybe one question that I might have. When you presented Casey those 10 capabilities, um, would there be like in your experience, no? Maybe like a top three, if ever? I know it's a bit tough, okay? But would there be like maybe some priorities or maybe like could be trends that you can see that out of the 10, this tends to be more the ones that, organizations perhaps are looking for? Um, or taken it another way, maybe the high potentials would really need this top three capabilities.
Yes, thank you for that question. So obviously different high potentials will show strengths in some area and a lower propensity in some area. But generally, King, if you ask me to choose 3 out of the 10, my top 3 would be number 1, agility. Okay, because it's the foundation of learning strategy, learning new business models, learning the digital business, learning global business. If you don't have the agility, then it just wouldn't work, right? The second one, which I think is very important, is the simplicity part. Because too many leaders get overwhelmed by the complexity of the business and the complexity of the requirements that is placed, multiple stakeholders, conflicting demands, employees, conflicting demands, the technology change, the competitive change. The ability to have vision, to very clearly structure and stay with that vision and clarify the path, for the team is, I would say, a characteristic that is difficult to find. Okay, so the simplicity. The third one, if you allow me to choose, Sarah Lee, is diversity.
Please.
Is diversity and inclusion. Okay, because why do I say that? Is that a lot of successful people are successful, and when they become successful, they become cocky, they become arrogant, they are full of themselves. Nothing wrong with that. They have a successful track record. And as a result of which, they do not know how to leverage Sarah Lee. They do not know how to leverage Casey Yan. They do not know how to leverage Anne Brillantis. Okay? And so the ability to stay confident with your success, obviously, that's important, but then to also recognize what the other parties bring in and leverage it and harmonize it, okay, which is the diversity piece and then the inclusion piece. So if I would ask to choose the 3, that would be the top 3.
Thank you so much, Casey. I believe we have a question from Chris. Right? What are some strategies to support the hypos 2 to 3 levels down that may not have the right leader to support their growth?
Wow, that's a great question. Right, Chris, I would not like to have a differentiated approach or strategies to support high potentials, be it 2 or 3 levels down versus the high level. The only difference being the amount of investment dollars that you can give to the more junior one versus the more senior ones. But my 26 can apply. Right, now, what is important is when we look at the word 2 to 3 levels down, Chris, I hope you will agree with me, is about, in succession planning, we always say Is this person ready now? Is he going to be ready in 6 months? Is he going to be ready in 12 months? Is he going to be ready in 24 months? So we're talking about the amount of time that a person will ultimately, using the 10 criteria, mature and prove their potential and get ready now at a certain period in time. So when you are talking about bring it down 2 or 3 levels, the 2 or 3 levels means purely that we are looking at them maturing, fine-tuned in perhaps 36 months, or maybe even 48 months, as opposed to I am already a middle manager and I got to prove myself in 24 months, for example. So it's the amount of time for gestation, is the amount of time for a proving point. Number one. Number two, very important, and this is very, very important, is that we got to give fair investment to the true level down. I've seen this sometimes myself. I am guilty of that. Is that if I have got $100,000 of investment dollars, I will then tend to invest it on my middle managers as opposed, okay, to invest it, okay, on the younger managers. And I'm saying is, I'm not saying what is that ratio, but make sure that the more senior managers are not taking away all the investment of time, money, and effort. Coaching. Let me give you a case of coaching. The coaching effort for the 2 to 3 level down should not be any less than the coaching effort that we give, okay, to the middle managers and the senior managers. Okay, so that's the point that I'm trying to make. All right, Chris, I hope, okay, that you can take my perspective on that.
Thank you, Casey. We also have a question from Elaine. When it comes to job promotions, who do you think, Casey, would be more fitting? Someone with low level competence but high level of capability, or invest in someone with high level of competence but low level of capability? What factors would influence your choice?
Wow. All right. To me, it is about how that person acquired that competence. So in other words, all right, okay, when that person acquired that competence, did she acquire it or did he acquire it, okay, through agility, through outside-in thinking, through, dealing with complexity? Then I would give that the run-up to his or her current level of competency will allow this person to develop the next level of competency. But if this person came in very coddled, very restricted, very not mobile, and so on and so forth, then I will give or her the competence, the performance credit. But how this person get to that point is more indicative of whether this person will have extra runway to take on a Boeing 747 into the future.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Thank you, Casey. What I'm picking up from there is really that agility, qualities that they would need, and it would need to show up, right? Need to show up when they eventually get that next level, no? They get that next position.
Right.
We
Because
have another.
yeah,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Casey. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So the definition of capability, remember, to do different, do more, do new, do. Okay. So that's the suggestion that it's got to be in future, that competency is going to bring you that newness and innovation, etc.
That's is Juan Aries has this question. Casey, could you share what are the strategies to build high post talent branding?
Right. Okay. So talent branding. Okay. My job. Okay. So I'll start with the role that I play as an HR person. Okay, to help with the branding of the talents. I've identified them as high potential. I've gone around and checked multiple perspectives that I am not biased, okay, or cockeyed, okay, in any way in assessing this person's capability. Right. Then our job, ladies and gentlemen, is to do two things. Number one is this person must not be allowed to be only known and famous in his or own domain. Okay, so this person has got to come about, okay, and market himself, have that confidence, have that savvy to sell his or her, not oversell, but appropriately sell, as opposed to undersell, under acknowledged. Okay, so he or she has got to want to take proper credit for what he can do or she can do. Number one. Next, talent branding is then the line management, whether it is the senior management, whether it is HR, has got to go around and make this person tell stories about the person, describe him as a hero, describe, hey, this person has got these unique characteristics, and this is the behavior, and this is the capabilities, and this is the competency, and we want everybody, all right, weapons, to know about this person. If anything else, so that we can confirm the brand. No, it's just that you and I say, oh no, Toyota brand or a Lexus brand, okay? So it's not only clever marketing, but the fact is then after we expose it to the users and they come back and say, yes, indeed, the Toyota brand is a solid brand. Okay, so when we talk about talent branding, that is about the marketing, communication, storytelling, hero building or heroine building around the talent. But very importantly is that when you brand your talent, they have to live up to the brand. Okay, so when we say they are good, they have to continue to be good. Otherwise, I buy that brand and then I thought, what the heck? All right, it doesn't fulfill my expectation. So it provides motivation for the talent to continue to excel.
Nice. Thank you. That is so true. We would often say the truth in advertising, right, Casey?
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. Would there be also other questions before I think two more things will happen? In a moment I'll be sharing my screen and then I hope you can all stay on and let's also have like a group photo, right, Casey? To commemorate this.
Absolutely.
We would often say if yeah, let's have a photo or it never happens. So for those who can obviously turn on their cameras, that would be awesome. Okay, his one said superb answer. It fell off my chair. Yeah, thank you, Casey. It's really really amazing. So last call, anyone? Right, if not, allow me also, maybe while folks are kind of thinking or waiting, allow me to extend an invitation for those who are here. And I know, Casey, we will meet here as well, right? This is an invitation for ITD's Global Leadership Team Conference entitled Thriving Sustainably. So we will be joined by Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, world's #1 executive coach, Dr. Peter Chi, ITD World's CEO, and the world's #1 strategic innovation coach, as well as Brenda Benz, talking about branding as well, strengthening your leadership brand, world's #1 leadership branding guru. So I will be joining them as a session chair, and this will be happening on October 17 in Penang, October 20 at Ho Chi Minh City, and October 24 in Kuala Lumpur. So for those who are keen to actually join us, please get in touch with the one who invited you to come to Let's Coach Masterclass, or just visit itdworld.com and we'll be more than happy to help you out. So there, anything else before I stop sharing too? Okay. All right, those who can turn on their videos. Let's take also a group photo. And those who've joined us on YouTube, we want to also thank each and every one of you for joining us in Let's Coach Masterclass. And of course, please stay tuned for what we will feature for next month. Dr. Kat, would you have a message as well? Right.
Yeah, I wanted to say that those CCMP and CCMC alumni, if you come for our Global Leadership Development Conference that Sarah Lee showed you, we have a chance to have dinner with Marshall Goldsmith and the Guru. So please contact me, contact every one of us who invited you if you want to join the dinner as well for those alumni. Thanks.
Awesome. So let's turn on our cameras for those who can. And I will also take the shot as well. All right. Okay. In 3, 2, and 1. Smile. Awesome. All
One more
right.
time, please, Sarah Lee. I forgot to
Okay.
on my
No,
video.
it's okay. I was able to capture you as well, Dr. Kat. I was able to do that. So again, on behalf of ITD World, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Casey.
Thank you. I
Wow.
appreciate your listening. Thank you very much.
I know, such a wealth of knowledge, and we all cannot believe it was only about an hour and a few minutes. Okay, and so with that, thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we will see you in the next Let's Coach Masterclass.
Thank you.
Casey, yes. Thank you, everyone.
Great to see you,
Thank you.
Thomas.
Hi.